Okay. Regina, everybody wants to know. Well, they have so many questions, but I think they want to know um, how did my style transcend the diversity of content? I knew that um, I was doing two types of work. I was introducing diverse iconography into corporate America. So many of the projects you will see leaders who dared to begin to make a full palette of presentation to their communities. And I service corporate responsibilities and social responsibility, high end corporate literature. And so we have some leaders in the collection of corporations who were willing to put faces of color, um, expressing design equality and inclusion and diversity. Um, and there are a couple of leaders. I want to shout out to Philip Morris and a big, big, big shout out to Time Inc. They called me to do corporate literature that began to express design diversity and community and a global perspective of imagery in their corporate communications.
Literature.
The reverse, once I was successful with the Fortune 500 companies, in all cases, they sent me as in-kind service, paid me to service my African American not-for-profit corporate communications from this range of time that we're establishing and growing their voice and their mission statements nationally. So the work is twofold. I'm introducing diversity into corporate literature. I'm being used, and I'm used to upgrade corporate communications from our well-established national African American corporations and organizations established after the Civil Rights Movement. And so that's why the high-end quality corporate communications for the Black organizations, and then the corporate initiatives to introduce this diverse iconography into their corporate communications. So a lot of the images, the photography, I dared to put ink to paper images that could alarm people. Beautiful photography. We had our collection has maybe we'll come back with another soundbite about the two major photographers that I work with, Ed Eckstein, and John Penderhughes. But we'll come back and talk about photography again. But and even the illustrators, and like we saw in that Black Caucus piece, the graphic imageries and symbols and things that I created or my designers, we weren't afraid to and the pieces that we did for McDonald's, we weren't afraid to create imagery that represented a broad scope of people, not even just the African American community, but just culture and lives of people of color around the world, around the nation. We just made pretty pictures.
Yeah, and positive images of folks doing positive things with their lives, and also on par with the organization's efforts and mission statements.
Right.
So we're seeing that in all of the content that so far we've been packing.
Right.
And
so one of the things that I believe that if I was a good designer and my usage of space would transcend whatever discomfort people would feel protracted by new imagery. I felt if I held the rule of law to sound design, that would transcend whatever I was stirring up emotions.
yeah, or reader biases, perhaps.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I centered all my work is based on what we call back in the day the Swiss grid system, and you can get Regina. We are giving to Stanford. The Swiss grid system. This is the Bible for grid systems in graphic design. That is the understanding of the grid and typography and the usages of columns. And the only thing I can tell you is paginating and learning the grid system for designing work is what helped the imagery and the new move of communicating to transcend. It held architecture. So, Stanford, the Swiss grid system, and here is one of my favorite pictures. I mean, my favorite books, the United Negro College Fund, and
This is the grid system in action.
The grid system in action. And so here you can see back in the day, we have all the notes that belong to this this sample. This is high-end piece, Partners for the Future. And so back in the day, we would study, I would spend so much time figuring out columns, length of columns, the width against type size and space, and there was all types of notations that we had to work with, editor's notes and so forth, to create typography. So I had my typographic notes, planning out the chapters, etc. And so here are all of my notes. Now we take this stuff for granted because the computer just does it, and you do it by eye, and you drag and pull and twist,
Right.
But we had to figure this stuff out.
This is the procedural markdown.
Right. So every chapter is figured out and planned within the context. So the first task in this is working with the manuscript in order to know how much copy you're going to have in order to produce a book within budget. So you just can't go infinitum. Your pages were in increments of 4, and page design is left, right. And so I would paginate, first off, I would paginate the book so I could price it. All right. And I'd have to know how many pages, how many spreads, back and cover, and so forth. So I would plan out just the manuscript text, no pretty or anything. Just 2 pages is going to hold how many words? So either the manuscript would come, or we would have the manuscript written to the length of the page. Okay? So that was step 1 in planning of the book. And so these are my my notes, so planning out. And then conceptually, we would plan out the grid based on the grid system. And this is one of my favorite, this award winner. I've given you all of my certificates of awards. I can't tell you which one we did the best printers in town.
Box
And
number 4.
Box number 4. And I'm happy to say one of my young art directors, okay, is Cheryl Price, who's a grad from
Stanford University.
the design department. She went to grad school.
Oh, that's her photo.
That's her
the
photo
cover.
on the cover. And so it was a team effort, okay?
Yeah.
And she in many cases, was one of my premier designers.
I think the photos might be right over
Over
here
there,
in the stacks.
stacked, right.
Yeah.
So, and she left me actually to do her graduate work at Stanford. So anyway, just to briefly show you, this is, I would plan out from the manuscript, I would now then plan out the grid. And so there we have, here's value of support. I would plan this page out. And just as an example, there's my sketch, and here's my panel. Here's my spread, what we call. And this process is called pagination. Right. So I determined, if you see my heavy black note there, okay, so my heading would be here. Okay. I established this grid mark. All right. I established this grid mark. This is a panel.
Yep, and this is what we see here.
This is what we
Photo
see here.
panel.
Right. And this is what we see here.
Yep.
Okay. Right in here, I'm establishing this line. Okay.
It's gonna be that text
Here's a
there.
photo, and and continues. This is your caption to the photo, etc. So this was a beautiful. Here we go. I'm just following.
Right.
See the panel, and the book keeps a rhythm. So where the images could, like, oh my God, look at all of these faces of color. I've never seen a book like this. The white space and the grid, the Swiss grid system, held my work together. This is an award winner for us. We won an award. I can't tell you which one it is. You have it. You can you can
research
yeah,
it.
you can research. But this was a blessing. We prospered off of it. We got a lot of attention off it. We got a chance to work with Ed Eckstein with this, and I believe he's the photographer on this one. Yep, Ed Eckstein in New York, and learning the papers and the treatments. Stanford,
Yeah,
enjoy.
This is amazing collection. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's amazing.